Hello, everybody. Welcome to the I Was Here Teen Leadership Development Institute panel discussion. My name is Jhai Keaton, and I will be your host today. And we would like to just kind of recap the 9-week program that is sponsored by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, and it is organized by the Trinity Outreach Corporation of Jackson County. So the Trinity Outreach Corporation hosted 17 young males of color, and they had a 9-week program in which they met on Fridays and Saturdays to discuss institutional racism and structural racism and how to deal with the identification of that and just the overall feel of institutional racism. So last year, to kick off the first discussion, or the first session, if you will, we had a panel discussion that was comprised of Ken Tarvis Brown, Keith Brown, and Tabari Daniels. And we had a panel discussion in Gulfport, Mississippi at the Almanac Hotel and Bistro. And we all sat around and discussed different instances and our personal opinions about institutional racism. So throughout this segment, we'll cut back to those clips and kind of show you guys that discussion. But today I have with me Sean Shoemate, who is a mentor of the program. How you doing today?
I am excellent. How about yourself?
I'm pretty good. Yeah. So tell me, from a mentor standpoint, tell me, how did you feel about the program, and how do you think it benefited the young males?
It benefited them greatly. Initially, I came in just to be of a background assistant, but I somehow got incorporated to being a mentor. It has been definitely rewarding, but I've seen a lot of change from the initial start of the program with the males, as far as confidence and excellence in character and things, on awareness of structural racism, as you spoke of earlier, and the dismantling thereof. So.
Oh, okay, nice. So did you host any segments, any workshops?
Yes, I actually had a chance to host one of the workshops, which were called, it was, I just forgot.
Been a long time ago.
Yeah, it's been so long.
Right.
I mean, we've done so much in such a little time.
So tell me one of the most standout things that you've noticed when you first came versus now, and in the attitude and the character of the boys.
When they first came in, you can tell they were a little intimidated, didn't know what to expect as far as the program went. Some of them weren't interested. So it wasn't until we delved into the meat of the program that they began to draw interest. And it was based upon us being creative with how we structured the program and did the different field experiences and things like that brought about an engagement on their part.
So how much do you value this? I mean, were you doing something like this before you got involved?
I wasn't, which is very interesting. Never thought I would be in this particular place. But I must say that it has changed my perspective as far as mentorship is concerned and the importance of increasing it in our society.
Cool, perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're here with us today as we host this panel discussion. So what we're about to do now is cut to the panel discussion that we had at the Almanac Hotel and Bistro in Gulfport, Mississippi, to discuss institutional racism from an adult standpoint with men of color.
My name is Pastor Tarvis Brown, pastor of the Bridge International, Pascagoula, Mississippi, and also the founder director of the Bridge of Hope Foundation, also located in Pascagoula, Mississippi. Very glad to be here today.
Thanks for coming.
Tabari Daniels, broadcaster, entrepreneur. Of course, we're having it here at the beautiful Almanac Hotel and Bistro.
Very beautiful Almanac.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Shameless plug.
Thanks for coming.
And our father.
Right.
Yeah. Keith Brown, owner of Omni Wireless, entrepreneur.
So again, I'm glad to have you guys to be a part of this panel. So we're gonna get right into it. First, how would you guys define race?
When it comes to race, unfortunately, America has this idea of race as first thing they see. People tend to look at you and categorize you immediately just because of how dark you are, how light you are. So I think that's one of the biggest problems as African Americans. We have a problem defining ourselves because too many times we're trying to define ourselves in a way that doesn't insult any other ethnic group. You know, and once we come off to the point where we're defining ourselves as being African American or being black, then unfortunately it rubs people in some ways to where, oh well, if you're black, then you're into hip hop, or if you're black, then that means you're from a low level neighborhood. If you're black, you're from the projects. If you're black, there's certain things I can't say to Tyrone. So I think when defining race, you really walk that tricky tightrope, you know, of if you're going to be scientific about it, or if you're going to be more what everybody else is calling black, or, you know. So I think for me, defining race has more to do with my ancestry, who my parents are, and what I've been taught, how they define it for me. So for me, African American, black, Negro, all that.
Right. So Keith, do you think that race does it influence the way that we view each other?
Well, first I wanna weigh in on what is race.
Okay.
We are all black, white, Asian, whatever. We're supposed to be. Race is a biological or scientific term.
Right.
That's what it's originated from. We are Homo sapiens. We are animals just like a dog is an animal.
Right.
We're Homo sapiens, okay? That's what race is supposed to be. All of this other stuff comes down after that. When you go back to it, we're Homo sapiens. And now all this black and African American, all these things came after that. Everybody might not want to get into this, but you are and I am the same thing that white guy is, that Asian guy is, that Native American is, and I think that's where you should start at when you say what is race.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah. Okay. So again, I'll ask you. So, how do you think race influence, or how do you think the perception of race influence the way that people respond to us? You kind of hit on that a little bit, or that we respond to each other. Do you think that we respond to each other in a certain kind of way, considering what we look like?
No doubt. Right or wrong, it is what it is.
So what's in right now, light skin or dark skin?
Very good question. Of course, I'm gonna say brown skin. But yeah, that picture. If you flash a picture, whatever race or species or whatever ethnic group you think, and that's what race has become now. Race is, nobody goes back. And if we're talking about youth and something for youth, we need to take them there. We need to take them to the fact that race and ethnic group is two different things. You know what I'm saying? That's where the conversation has to start. Now it's all about ethnic group. We've been everybody want to separate themselves and their culture and do that, and that's fine. But because of that, we've gotten away from what race is, and we've got your ethnic group is that's who you are, that's what it is, and we're not the same. It's like we're all human beings as a race, but now your ethnic group takes precedent over that. Yeah.
That's also too to what you were saying, and also to put back on this point. I think the problem is, unfortunately, racism and prejudice go hand in hand. We tend to prejudge based off of what we see, even when it's not so much as when we're not talking race. We're talking about just because you got your pants sack and all of a sudden I prejudged you, or because you got dreads, I'm going to prejudge you, or because you got gold teeth, now I'm prejudging you. So one of the easiest ways to prejudge, when you can't go off of fashion, you can't go off of a lifestyle, is, okay, what does he look like? Now, since he looks black, now unfortunately, because you're black, it has such a negative connotation. I think that is one of the biggest problems. We have to stop getting to the point where we're allowing black to be associated with negativity. Just because you're black doesn't mean you automatically don't have money. Just because you're black doesn't mean you're not intelligent. Just because you're black doesn't mean that you can't have an intelligent conversation with somebody, or you can't appreciate some of the things that your white counterparts can appreciate.
That's great.
So I think that we have to stop prejudging based on the visual, based off of, just because I see you or him doesn't mean that, okay, all
structural racism, deal with that. Like one of my issues is this new thing called ADHD. And so we got policies and procedures that really target, and that's what structural racism does, is targets a group of people by making another group of people feel protected while another group of people go unprotected. So you got your Trayvon Martin situation, and you got, and I'll deal with ADHD and we'll jump back on the Trayvon Martin situation. ADHD, when you look at that, 75% teachers are female, and then 85% of them are white female. What are they gonna understand about a black male? And so you have some that's coming forth saying, I have to admit, from where these kids' backgrounds are, how they're being trained, and what their values are different from mine, so I don't know how to deal with them. And so we call them problematic, and we put them on medication, which has all kinds of effects that's going to, pretty much devastate our group of people if we don't get a handle on this, when it's not necessarily that, you know what I'm saying, that our kids are having issues that need to be put in special ed classes and on medications, just because somebody don't understand the background of where they come from. So that's a form of structural racism. And then with the Trayvon, Martin, you got Florida, who stand your ground law. Well, who was that? What was that law designed to do? You understand what I'm saying? Who's going to be actually the most target of the stand your ground law? When you got people, like I said, that is targeted to protect, then it's got people that is targeted to profile. And so those are some examples of structural racism that is very, very prevalent today in our society.
And I'll even hit on within schools and just within the way that subject matters are taught. I think that considering some of the things that African Americans deal with outside of the classroom, I even think the approach to teaching the lessons should kind of be, modified, for the lack of better words. I mean, you got kids that when they leave, they have to deal with all kind of stuff at home. Parents maybe being on drugs, parents not being at home, kids in the neighborhood selling drugs, or just no structure at all. So when that kid comes into that classroom, what are they really thinking about? Are they really interested in reading, this, or being talked at? And if you see that kid isn't necessarily being reached, what are we actively doing to try to, to try to reach those kids? And it's not a Mississippi thing, it's a worldwide issue. You know what I mean? So I think that's definitely, a structural or institutionalized thing.
The only thing I would say with that is, as far as, I wouldn't see how that would be, I'm not disagreeing per se, but as far as, that's not just for African American kids.
Right. No, it's not. It's not.
We're talking also Caucasian kids have to deal with the drug problem as well as Hispanic. Right. So I think just to your point, I do agree there is a way that you have to approach some of the kids in those deteriorating home situations, but I would hate for people to assume that it's just in those ethnic places, just in African American households,
and it's not.
just in Latin American households.
I will acknowledge that it isn't.
Our education system, I mean, it's not just black kids that's getting behind. Like, America's education system as a whole is falling behind. Right. I can talk about that forever. One of the reasons is, like, this is the example that I used, in that Mississippi, because I'm from Mississippi, needs to get into, and the rest of the United States can get on later, but video games, a kid that's 3, 4, when he gets a video game, right, the first time that he can figure out when he moves this button right here, the little thing on the TV moves, that is fascinating. And like graphics in the US, the best graphics that comes out, they're gonna be on those video games first. You see movies, big production movies, do that stuff that's on those games later, on the video games first. So at 3, he picks up a video game. 4, he picks up a video game. Now, and he's bombarded, his brain is bombarded with the best graphics in the world. And now when he gets 6, you want him to go in first grade and sit in class and listen to this lady do this. After 10 minutes, that is out the window. You know what they call it? ADHD. Well, they wasn't diagnosing my mom and your mom then with ADHD.
So at all, right?
This is a what? I'm gonna say 20-year phenomenon now. It's everybody got ADHD.
Right.
No, you need to change what you're doing in the classroom. And that's not a racist. That's across the board.
Right.
That's across the board.
I agree that it's across the board, but the statistics of our African American boys is rising
It's
really
more.
high
It's
to be
more.
on the meds before, and to be honest, I was sitting in my psychology class, and my psychology teacher who professed that her daughter actually had ADHD, but like most of them, and let's look at some things now. When in an African American situation from African American home, we're talking about welfare, we're talking about subsidized housing, and we're talking about checks. So many of our African American people that are having babies are younger, starting out now. And so they're not seeing the depth of what this is doing. They're seeing a quick check. And so we're supported and we're being offered, they're gonna focus, they're gonna do this, and we're not being educated like we need to what the ramifications are going to be in the long run. Whereas my Caucasian teacher said, we're gonna have to get through this a better way. There's not to be no way that I'm gonna let them medicate you for this. We're gonna have to find a way to get through this. Most of ours are uneducated. We just was told, got to know, hey, they're gonna be, and that's what's happening. You see what I'm saying? So that's what's bringing my concern when it comes to the African American community. Not to say that it's not all across the board, because I believe it is.
Yeah.
But again, structural racism, again, you have teachers that are saying, because I believe in, you said change the classroom, and I also remember there was a time when we were disciplined.
Right.
Yeah.
And nobody's disciplining anybody. We don't have any, we had time just because. Yeah. And I believe now that as I get older, that's so I can know the difference between when and when not. There's no structure even home-wise, versus school, and that's a whole different ball game as well.
So you guys just finished watching the panel discussion from the first session featuring Pastor Tarvis Brown as well as Keith Brown and Tabari Daniels, shot at the Almanet Hotel and Bistro in Gulfport, Mississippi. So we're back with Sean Shoemate, and we have another guest with us, Mr. Rodney Edwards. How are you today, Rodney?
Doing good. How about yourself?
I'm pretty good. You seem very festive this morning. Cool beans. So tell us, you are a part of the program, the I Was Here program. So tell us about it. How was that experience?
It was quite fascinating because at first I wasn't that interested in it. And then once I started getting into it, it started becoming very interesting to me. And I learned about different policies and how to dismantle structural racism.
Now, I just want to play on the first comment that you made because I appreciate your honesty, but you not being interested in it initially. Do you feel like, first of all, why weren't you that interested in it? And do you feel like other teens your age tend to not be interested in things like this?
Well, most teens my age in this generation are not interested in, bettering themselves. I was focused on different things at that time, such as school and band and stuff. But then my mother, she was like, I want you to do this. I was like, I'll give it a try. Then I became interested in it. So, yeah.
So what was different about this program from other programs that you have engaged in the past? What made this keep your interest?
I mean, learning about, so much stuff hidden in mainstream society, and then learning about it, like watching it, and then once you learn about it, you can see it firsthand once you go out in public and stuff. That's what kept me interested.
So as you were learning things in the classroom, you guys would have in-field experiences. So you guys were able to travel around. What are some of the places that you went?
I mean, we would take trips to Jackson. We took a trip to Atlanta, New Orleans. We would go a lot of places. Right. Sometimes we'd go to some local places like Gulfport and stuff like that.
So what was the most beneficial thing, in your opinion, about the program? What stood out to you the most?
Learning about the different forms of racism. I didn't know. I thought it was just, people being stereotypical and, biased and stuff like that, but there's many different forms. It's like so much hidden in mainstream society.
And it's not to just say that everybody is racist at all, but there are some things, from what I take from institutional racism, there are some things that just have been implemented in society without consideration towards where I guess the African American or minority culture would be in the year 2014. Okay, So, Shoemate, what are your comments about this young man in particular, or how have you seen him grow over the course of the last 9
Definitely.
months?
Rodney, of course, was one of the elite of the group, and it had a lot to do with his engagement and his interest in the program. That's why he's actually here now, because he wanted to even go further beyond what the initial program had to offer. But there has been a lot of change in his demeanor and his character as a whole, in his language and just his overall aura. And how he speaks so eloquent, and how he presents himself has changed tremendously.
And also, very briefly, so once you finished the 9-week program, you guys became young statesmen.
Young statesman in Jackson County.
And how were you selected based on that?
Well, you had to complete the first program to go into the Young Statesman in Jackson County. If you completed it and you choose to keep going, then you were in it.
Okay.
And it's really, we represent our county in the state of Mississippi, and we travel around, talk about the program.
Okay. And then a select few, you guys now have the opportunity to become mentors.
Yeah, it's on the full list.
So how you feel about that?
Feel great. I feel great that I was chosen to become a mentor, that, somebody believed in me to teach others.
Okay, perfect. So now we'll go back to a second clip of the first panel discussion that we shot at the Almanac Hotel and Bistro in Gulfport, Mississippi. I hope you guys enjoy it, and I'm enjoying this conversation. Thanks for being here.
Yes, sir.
Around, but I hear a lot of the older people talk about integration, and how a lot of minorities think that integration wasn't necessarily the best thing for blacks, because what that did was it then removed the sense of community in a lot of ways. Because now it's saying, okay, there's this equal playing field, and now we, instead of believing in each other, we now everybody trying to be like somebody else.
Crabs in the bucket.
Right, crabs in the bucket, basically. That's kind of what it did. So in talking about what you guys are discussing, that's really that's one of the things that create that individualistic thing. It's like, okay, now free reign. We don't have a reason. I don't have to sit around you all day, because now I can go over here. Right. Now my child gonna go to this school over here. So whereas before, all we could do was reinvest in our own schools, or reinvest in our own books, or the community would come and teach. If this teacher was sick, somebody's mama would come. That's gone now. Because now you go into these new school districts, these new systems, and now they have more money, and you just get caught up in that whole
That's
thing.
a very good point to be raised, but and that goes into the responsibility part, because I just really can now see the and not giving it a support, but what the direct effects of what slavery has done to us as a people, because like I said, it just has changed faces, because in the 21st century we do have communities right in our area that know how to yet be a community. And so it says to us something is wrong when we can't keep that sense. And I mean, they're utilizing it. I mean, in certain communities, a dollar bill go around 5 or 6 times before they ever leave the community. We don't even understand that.
That's what's supposed to happen.
Right, we don't even understand
That's
that.
what's supposed to happen.
So that's a responsibility for us. And again, that's what I'm trying to pose that question. How did this information, how did this knowledge get here? What are we not doing?
It's another part of the big institution that's got it that way.
Right.
There are billions of dollars spent every year that determines what you see on that TV. And TV has become the focal point of the house. You get off work, that's where you at. It's the babysitter, it's the entertainment in the evening and all that. And there is so much stuff that you're not getting. There's $1 billion being spent to what goes on there and what's kept off of there. And the things that will build that sense of community is not being paid for to go on there. And so you left with it. You look at the TV, the information that you should be getting is not there. The information that you're getting puts you in this euphoric state and everything is good. And y'all shouldn't be fighting for nothing. Everything is good. And that's just not the case.
And one thing too, I like that, because I had to be careful with this. I've done a study one time, because we're talking about structural racism and how this thing is really big, and TV is a strong instrument that kind of continues to promote it. this thing concerning HIV and AIDS in the African American community, it was really a ploy to make us afraid of each other, afraid to love each other and to give with each other, because it was said that we were the carriers mostly of this disease. And so when you find out where they get these statistics from and where they get this research from, they're isolated events, and then they put it on a national scale to put fear in us to yet cohabitate with each other. So we have to kind of be careful of some of the rhetoric that we're buying into through media and things of that nature. And that's on every level, because, you know, when you turn to the TV today, it is obvious to the American opinion, this is the worst government we've ever had. This is the worst government we ever had. Now, is it just so happened because we have an African American president? I don't know, but it's the most talked about government that is in the worst state that we've ever had. So how much of that is rhetoric? How much of that is believed by us? How much of that is not believed, you know, is a concern, you know, because it's shaping the ideas.
What is the saying about a truth one time, a lie 1,000 times? What you know what I mean? Yeah. That's what happens with the news media. And people, everything now, we live in a fast-paced world. So digesting something totally is not what's happening. You hear that fly-by clip. This economy is the worst ever. Right. With that's just what you heard. Right. No backup, and then you hear it tomorrow. Right. You hear it the next day. Right. You hear it the next day. Oh, it's being paid for you to hear that. Right. And so that's what you think. Yeah. You go in to have a discussion like we having now. You know, this is the worst economy in the world. Like you ain't done no research on that or nothing. At all. We got it. We can't do that, man. Yeah. You have to seek out knowledge, man, of what's going on today.
And speaking about, you know, the presidency, some of the stuff that was being said and the actions that were taking place during the campaign, it really made me sit back, and I don't know if it's hitting on institutionalization or not, but it's kind of like, you know, white people really just felt entitled, like there is no way that this man is finna be president again. And it was the measures, because again, we ain't here to bash nobody, but it was the measures that were taken to defeat President Obama, to not acknowledge him as president publicly with no shame. It was multiple times that I remember watching John McCain during the first campaign, we're not trying to spread the wealth. He said that during a presidential debate, but for whatever reason, no one ever mentioned. He said it 3 times during the presidential debate. No one ever said anything about that. Mm-hmm. Now, touching on institutionalization, is that something that is just are we numb to that?
It's inbred. I continue that's my argument today. I think it's so inbred that we're just blind to the elephant that's in the room. We can't even see it anymore. And then, not to mention when it doesn't directly affect us, we're not bothered with it. That's a problem. Right. That is a major problem. So how are we going to bring a solution to this when there's not enough people that's even concerned overall how this is affecting us, that we're not even paying attention to?
And that's when me personally, that's why earlier when you, Tabar, mentioned that it's not just happening within the minority or the African American community, you're right. A lot of this stuff happens. There's so many people in the world, so many different cultures. We're all experiencing the same things. But me personally, I feel like we have to focus on us. You know what I mean? And acknowledge the dirty laundry in our own house. Because for so long, we've been not acknowledging ourselves or sweeping it under the rug, not wanting to publicly talk about it because of whatever resistance we feel like we might come up against. But again, in 2013, it's one of those things and saying, there are other people that acknowledge that the Republican, and I don't want to just keep saying white like it's a white-black thing, but the Republican Party, y'all wrong for that. You know what I mean? It wasn't just black people wasn't the only people that had to say something. It was other whites, other cultures that felt the same way. And by President Obama being elected again, it kind of shows that old way of thinking or living is not necessarily as prevalent. But you take it a step further. I was watching a documentary last night. It was called Park Avenue. Park Avenue talked about the difference in between Park Avenue from Lower Manhattan up to 125th or 160. Then you got Park Avenue in the Bronx. You got some of your wealthiest billionaires that stay, I think it was 720 Park Avenue in Manhattan, east side of Manhattan, that never go up towards 125th. And the president, Bush, will stop at 720. They will prepare for this for 3 or 4 months just so that he can go in and have a 15-minute conversation with one of the hedge fund managers, you know, just because he need him to donate some money for his campaign. You know what I mean? So considering all those different elements, it's like we are fighting a tough battle, but at the same time, it's finding that leverage point of, one, gather around. And we're doing it right now, initiating the conversation. It's all about a conversation. We hope you guys are enjoying the panel discussion that took place at the Almanac Hotel and Bistro in Gulfport, Mississippi, discussing institutional and structural racism. This is the I Was Here Teen Leadership Development Institute panel discussion with Sean Shoemake and Rodney Edwards, and we're actually gearing up to promote the second session. So Rodney, we were talking a little bit about your experiences with the first segment, and you guys completed the first 9 weeks, and then you became young statesmen, and now you have an opportunity to be a mentor. How do you anticipate that process going?
I mean, it's going great. I plan to teach the younger generation as best of my abilities, you know, try to fix them towards a better future.
And it's interesting because Shoemake might be a few years older than me, as I am a few years older than you. How do you think you'll be able to impact and relate to the other people, your peers, in a mentoring capacity?
Well, I plan to impact them because, you know, I know them, so I'm hoping they'll listen to me. I'm hoping because I'm with their generation, and if they see that I can do it, that they can do it as well.
Now, as far as some of the curriculum, if you will, or some of the things that you guys learned during the program, what was the thing that stood out to you the most about just new information? I mean, I know you talked earlier about just the different forms of, you know, I guess racism, but were there any things, did you guys learn about any policies, any different type of?
Yeah, we learned about like different policies that affect race initially.
So it gets into the government structure of
how it affects the economy, how it affects your community and all that.
And again, it's not to say that people deliberately do these things. It's just that people, I guess it's just institutionalized that everybody might not necessarily be accounted for when all these decisions are made, correct? Okay, cool beans. So let's talk about this second session. Are you excited about it?
Very excited.
Yeah, you are. So what were the fun activities? I know y'all do some fun stuff. Tell me about some of the fun stuff that you guys get to do.
I mean, we had a chance to go to Atlanta. We met Demarius Bilbo. He's a football player from Miles Point. Went to the pros. Yeah, we got to meet him. We ventured around, shopped a little bit. We usually meet somebody that we'll have what is called storytelling, and they'll tell us their story and how they got where they are now.
Nice. So you went to Atlanta. I heard you guys went to D.C. Yeah. How was that experience?
It was great. Just seeing like an urban environment for the first time, getting to ride, you know, in the metro. Yeah. That was my first time seeing all that, you know, experiencing rush hour firsthand.
And how do you think that's going to impact you for the rest of your life? I mean, does that open your vision towards the possibilities and the bigger world out there?
I mean, yeah, because I didn't know, you know, there were like big cities were like that. So now if I, for instance, move there, I'll be prepared, you know, to look for a job and be prepared to compete with other people.
So which was your favorite
trip
outing? Yes.
The trip to Selma, Alabama. We got to march with John Lewis and people like that.
Okay, cool. So what was the most memorable experience about that?
Seeing all the people that came back from Bloody Sunday, like John Lewis, you know, just hearing them in the church talk about the experience was the most amazing thing. Because here they are, he almost got beat to death on Bloody Sunday, but now he's back telling us why it's so important to keep going.
Nice. Okay. So registration is underway.
Registration is definitely underway up until the end of this month.
Okay. So we have from now until May 30th.
Correct.
To register. What is the website?
The website is www.iwashere.tld.org.
Okay, and what about a contact number?
228-474-6996. And our executive director, Melita Jones, will be there from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Monday through Friday.
Perfect, perfect. We really appreciate you guys. We appreciate you for being here with us. Please register. This is a very valuable program. We would like to thank the W.K. Kellogg Foundation as well as the Trinity Outreach Corporation of Jackson County for even hosting this, because it is very, very much needed within the community. So please join in, call us, and download applications from the website. I am Jhai Keaton, the host for today, and we enjoyed you guys. So see you later. I like the place where it has come, and that is to the institutional. I mean, the institution. And my point in that is, we're not angry black men.
No.
We're not saying white people, it's your fault. We're not saying that it's your fault why we don't pay our bills, or it's your fault why, whatever. But it is getting down to the nitty gritty, and it's the last thing that's left. And that is the way we live, or the laws that rule the land. And at this point, again, we understand that there are people on the Hill, or people in Capitol Hill, that look out for our interests. But it's some laws that historically aren't here for us. So what I think, what I would like to see from other races is join in an honest way in the conversation. We don't say what you think we want. I really want to know, how do you feel? You know what I mean? How do you feel about this? If you really think that we have it bad in certain areas upon us, say that. And to those African Americans, don't get mad. We ain't here for that. I think that that's the thing that'll move us forward.
You know what though? I hate to say this, but I'm going to be honest with you. I think that that won't happen until it's some sort of profit, something to be made.
Really?
People are never really honest. If you notice, people are never really honest until they're going to benefit from it. Until there's some sort of money to be made. Until there's some sort of position of strength where they come off as the moral compass. Like, well, no, that's wrong, and they can take the moral high ground. I think when some people talk about race, they get to a point to where it's like, I'm not sure if I can move that route because I don't want to say something that's unpopular.
Right.
And then, of course, it's going to affect the bottom line.
Right.
I think that at some point, African Americans need to say, I don't care what everybody else thinks.
Yeah.
This is how we feel. This is how we define ourselves, and we're going to act accordingly.
Right.
We're going to define ourselves in a positive way, and we're going to get the rest of the world to start portraying us in a positive way, because we're not going to participate if it's in a negative way.
Right.
But I see so much with some of the other ethnic groups, Native Americans, Jews, and even Asians to an extent. They don't, quote unquote, sell out. They won't play that part of allowing Hollywood or music and other forms of media to continue to perpetuate that negative image.
Absolutely.
Just to give you some examples, China came out with the new Iron Man movie and told them their main villain, the Mandarin, that's normally played by an Asian character, couldn't be played by a Chinese person. That's out.
Right.
So Hollywood had to be like, okay, well, shoot, we're going to use a regular British actor this time.
Yeah.
Totally changed the whole idea of the character at that point.
Right.
You never really see Native Americans, for example. There's such a strong presence with them politically, to where in the new Lone Ranger movie, Johnny Depp is playing the part of Tonto, because Tonto initially was more of a racial character.
Right.
But now, because of their strong political presence, there is no Native American to play that part. No full, okay, this person is speaking on the part of Native Americans. Now Hollywood has said, okay, you guys are a political presence, we're going to get Johnny Depp to play the form of a traditionally Native American character.
Right, that's a good point. And I think it's also interesting that our African brothers, like the true Africans, I had the I would want to say the pleasure of working for a Nigerian when I worked in D.C. But it was interesting that they did keep true to those traditions within their culture, and how not so true they kept it, or not so real they kept it with African Americans. And it's almost kind of like they immediately want to disassociate that I'm not from here, I'm African. And we have our own set of, basically our own culture, and it's totally separate from their culture. It's almost kind of in a way in which they don't respect it.
Right. But it's because we don't respect it.
It's because we don't respect it.
You know, we've got to get to a point as African Americans to where we control the aesthetic value of our culture.
Absolutely.
We control what is the right thing to do, or what is presentable, or what is glamorous about our culture, instead of every other magazine or show saying, okay, no, you're not beautiful because your hair isn't straight enough. You know,
Absolutely.
you're not beautiful because you're not thin enough. You got to Photoshop you're behind because it's just too plump and full. We've got to say, no. This is beautiful for us. Now, if you want to, if you think it's beautiful too, then that's great. But we're not going to participate because we're not going to participate in your form of socially restructured for the sake of us trying to assimilate into your structure. We'd be good without it.